Oh, what's up you guys? I'm not amazing, I'm just mediocre. Welcome back to the channel. Marvel Avengers video, and today we're going to be breaking down Black Widow. Definitely one of the most versatile Avengers in the current lineup, but also one with potentially the highest skill ceiling and definitely one of the most unique intrinsic abilities that we have in the game, which gives her access to certain things that nobody else can do. She is a master of trying to complete combos, laying down heavy amounts of melee damage, yet is also equipped with some of the most powerful ranged capabilities in the game as well. However, I say that Black Widow has the highest skill ceiling because her intrinsic ability is directly tied to your skill at staying undamaged. Attacking enemies without taking damage is the only way to boost the energy of that Shadow Ops meter, and then once it's overcharged, it will increase your damage by 20%. A super useful stat to have added to your character, but the only way you can get it is by executing masterful dodges and counterattacks throughout combat. And then even after it's full, you have to stay untouched to keep that meter full. And there's a couple of ways you can make this a little bit easier. First, as a new Black Widow player, you want to try to upgrade the intrinsic skill tree in that specialty section as soon as possible, because that gives you a ton of extra ways to fill up your intrinsic meter. And then in the mastery section, you want to select the takedown specialization that gives you intrinsic orbs on takedowns, because that fills up your bar by about half, making it really easy to enter the overcharged state. However, that overcharge disappears if you get hit even once, so you gotta watch out for that. Now, one of the things that Black Widow gets because of this, since most other characters have to activate their intrinsic ability with their right triggers in some fashion, she gets a grapple ability, where pressing right trigger when she's not aiming down sights of her weapons will actually grapple you towards the closest enemy that you are aimed at, and so you can go quickly from one target to another. And it's a great way to keep that combo meter going, because that's another way the combo meter, the intrinsic meter, can dissipate, is if you stop attacking people for a certain amount of time. Now, in addition to those awesome combos, Black Widow also has 3 ranged weapons. She has a pair of semi-automatic dual pistols, she has a pair of fully automatic SMGs, and then she also has a heavy caliber single shot pistol. And each of these are very useful in their own particular ways, and they all have recoil that you're going to want to learn how to control. Very simply, if you're aiming down sights and you don't pull down on your stick, it will climb continuously all the way to the ceiling. So just like a regular shooting game, you're going to have to pull down on your right stick at the same time that you're tapping the right trigger to control the recoil on both the semi-automatic pistols as well as the SMGs. It's not really as big of a problem on the high caliber pistol. Now with the SMGs, they don't do a ton of damage, but they deal a lot of stun, and they will fill up enemy stun bars really fast, giving you easy takedowns. However, they don't have much range, so what you're gonna do is get up in somebody's face and unload those SMGs and then get some quick takedowns. It's a great way to fill your intrinsic bar really fast or get some health back because of that takedown willpower refill. Then you have the high caliber pistol, and these do a ton of damage in a single shot. I wouldn't say they're very effective against groups of enemies, but they're most effective against the flying units like the drones and the keepers. They can take down some of these guys in one shot, or maybe just 2 or 3. However, I don't really like using these the most. The weapons that I love using the most are just the straight up dually pistols. If you don't know, the developer of this game, Crystal Dynamics, are also the traditional developers of the Lara Croft Tomb Raider games, and you can definitely feel that inspiration here through Black Widow wielding these dual-wield pistols. It's just like that classic Lara Croft feel, and if you have a fast trigger finger, you can shoot these just as fast as the fully automatic SMGs. And I find that the firepower combined with the accuracy that you can stay far away at range if you need to, and deal out a huge amount of stun damage as well as status damage and just all kinds of deadliness at the same time, is why I prefer doing the dual wield pistols over the SMGs or the high caliber pistol 90% of the time. Now, of course, that's not the only stuff she got. We're going to get into those heroic abilities, and the first of that is her Veil of Shadows, which allows you and your team, anybody that's close by, to be invisible for a small period of time, which basically makes it so that the enemies don't target you at all. You can still get in the way of their attacks by your own accidents and your own mistakes, but for the most part, they don't actually go out of your way to target you, and this is a great way to get into a crowd of people and just start doing a ton of damage with pretty much no consequence to yourself. But what's really cool is this isn't actually the only way that Black Widow can make herself invisible. She has a specific skill tied to her intrinsic meter and her heavy power attack, which is actually tossing a grenade on the ground. You can customize a bunch of stuff about this grenade, but one of the cool things you can do is if your intrinsic meter is full, when you throw this grenade on the ground, you will actually turn invisible for a small period of time, 5 to 7 seconds, depending on what specializations you have chosen. And it's just a really cool option to have in the middle of combat, and especially if you have some of those other specializations I talked about to build up your intrinsic meter very quickly, you can use this stealth tactic multiple times in a single fight. Now, following up that, we get into the Assault Heroic, which is the Widow's Bite. Traditionally, you shoot out an electric taser, and that can do a bunch of shock damage to your enemies, but I don't really find this to be a very effective attack. It's kind of a big letdown, so what I prefer to do instead is I selected the Shock Fist specialization, which takes all the power of that Widow's Bite and turn it into one single punch, doing a tremendous amount of damage to enemies, and I vastly prefer it over the other Widow's Bite. It's just something I use on a regular basis. Anytime I have a big amount of damage I need to do, I use the Widow's Bite, but it does have an extremely limited range, so you're going to want to watch out for that. And then finally, of course, we have the Assault Heroic, and for Black Widow, that's going to be called Power Surge, and what she does is take her 2 shock batons and put them together to become one giant shock staff, and it increases your damage output and your damage range. The staff is very powerful. It can hit a bunch of enemies at the same time. It deals intrinsic shock damage just like all of her other heavy attacks, and it's just a really powerful item, and if you can use this to the maximum extent, just like maximizing your dodges, trying to keep your intrinsic meter going, because you can build your intrinsic meter separate from this power surge meter. It's a totally different thing, so you can get the power surge increased damage combined with the increased damage from your Shadow Ops intrinsic meter, and it just goes over the top. And in general, Black Widow's really good at putting on status effects. She has built-in shock damage with those heavy attacks like I already talked about earlier. She can also choose between plasma, cryo, or shock damage on her grenades, and then put both of those together, and you can put a lot of battery effect damage out on your enemies. And if you don't know what the battery effect is, you're definitely not alone. I had no idea what this effect was until my friend the Jedi Ninja gave me the lowdown, and I highly suggested you guys go subscribe to his channel. You're going to see a little link to that. Go click that button, subscribe to the Jedi Ninja, and then keep an eye out for my coming video in the next couple days talking about the battery effect and how you can achieve some crazy amounts of damage by combining specific status effects. In the meantime, I'm not amazing, I'm just mediocre, and I'm out.